Welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at UFC 319. Well, specifically its main event, Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. I'm going to be breaking it down. I'm going to be looking at the matchup. There's a lot of speculation with this fight. A lot of people on YouTube, at least, say that DDP is going to win this fight. I want that to be the case. I think Khamzat winning would be a bad thing for the division. But the narrative right now is Chimaev is going to gas after round 1 and DDP will take over in round 2 and maybe get the finish in round 3 or round 4. DDP has plot armor. DDP will win by falling anvil. Falling piano, I want to take a look at this matchup properly and in depth. I want to do a bit of research for it, and I thought I'd take you along for the ride. So I'm going to be watching a few fights. I've got the screenshots to show you. I've got a bunch of screenshots to show you. And I'm going to take you through the first round of a couple of matchups that Khamzat's had, and then a matchup that DDP's had. And I'm going to break down everything that's going on in those fights and the methods that people are using to survive Khamzat. And the holes, I think, will be exploited by Khamzat in DDP's game. It's not a very good matchup for DDP, in my opinion. Based on what I've found. So, get strapped in. Here we go. First up, we'll take a look at our challenger, Khamzat Chimaev. Now, Khamzat is rumoured to have a bad gas tank. The saying goes that if you manage to get out to the first round with him, you dramatically have better odds of winning. Now, in round 1, Khamzat always does the same thing against everybody. His plan is to smash. He goes forwards. He goes to get the takedown, he goes for the rear naked choke, and this is usually very effective. But let's take a look and see, because in 2022, Gilbert Burns managed to survive the first round against Khamzat Chimaev. I'm going to take a look and see how he did that. Now, the round opens up, Khamzat does what Khamzat do, and he immediately pressures Gilbert towards the fence with some nice body kicks, and the second Gilbert gives him that space and backs himself towards the fence, Khamzat shoots in on a takedown. Now, Burns is no slouch, and he manages to defend this temporarily. And Burns gives Khamzat his first taste of adversity. Khamzat is relentless, however, and the two battle for control along the fence until eventually they come to a settle on the ground. Now, Burns is technically grounded here. This is technically most likely a takedown, but Khamzat isn't fully in control. He does have a good bit of control right now. He is controlling the leg of Burns right there. He's got him wrapped up nicely. Burns can't go anywhere, but he's still got a lot of options on what he can do. And we have Khamzat landing a good bit of ground and pound there for you. He stalled out for a minute, and Khamzat decides to drag Burns along the canvas and finally grounding Burns. And he starts hunting for the back immediately. So as soon as Khamzat's got Burns off the fence, he's immediately hunting for a better position. He's immediately looking to get to the back. But Burns' grappling is world class. It's very different. Burns is a brilliant jiu-jitsu player. And Khamzat's surely aware of this, but hence why he's going for the back exclusively, right? So Burns starts building back to his feet, but Khamzat stays glued to his back. They battle a bit more along the fence, and then Khamzat lands a sneaky little trip. It's very good, it's very sneaky, but we don't really get to admire it properly and in all its beauty because Mike Beltran is in the way, and there's no footage of it that I can see, but it works, and he manages to get Gilbert down. But Gilbert again is no slouch, and he decides to use the opportunity to roll. He doesn't want to be on the ground with Khamzat on his back, so he's got to roll. He rolls, creates a scramble, and manages to get to his back. Now, this is important because on his back is the moment where Gilbert Burns is the most dangerous. And the second he gets to his back and starts trying to build a guard, Khamzat is immediately starts looking to retreat. He throws a shot and he gets back to his feet. He doesn't want anything to do with the guard, with the jiu-jitsu of Gilbert Burns. He'd rather just stand right back up. The referee stands them up, and they proceed to trade back and forth, with Khamzat, I think, slightly coming ahead, but Burns really having some good moments as well on the stand-up. Until finally, with 53 seconds on the clock, Chimaev lands a beautiful like stepping in jab, and it rocks Burns, and Burns goes down. Khamzat jumps on there, tries to get the finish, and almost gets the finish, but Burns regains some composure while having his face smashed in. But he does manage to get his guard back and threatens with an armbar, and straight away Khamzat retreats. The second he gets his guard back and the second there's a bit of wherewithal in Gilbert Burns and he's not finished, Khamzat backs right up. Khamzat doesn't want anything to do with it. The fight gets stood up again and they trade back and forth towards the end of the round. Now that's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting to take a look at. Spoilers. Now that's pretty interesting. The game plan is simple. Like I said earlier on, Khamzat's game plan for the first round is the same for every fight. Khamzat's trying to finish you in the first round and the game plan is the same. He kicks you and teeps you to the body, pushes you back towards the octagon, towards the fence, and he tries to get a takedown. He shoots in. He's relentless with it. He wears you down. He pressures you. And usually he gets it. But Gilbert Burns has the ability to, if he does get taken down, all he needs to do is turn to his back. The second he gets his back on the mat, he's got his guard, he's got his jiu-jitsu he can rely on, and Khamzat Chimaev doesn't really want to deal with that. That's a sign that Khamzat Chimaev doesn't specifically game plan for any of his opponents. He just has one strategy, one method of getting the victory, and that's a flaw as well as it is a strength. It's a strange one, but it's the same for every fight. You know, get the fight to the ground, get to the back, and get the finish. Now, I will mention that Khamzat does slow down for the next 2 rounds of this fight. He does win the fight. There's no controversy there in my opinion. Khamzat does win the fight, but he does slow down. This fight is a crazy pace, and the fact that he slows down, especially in round 2, is probably more of a conserving or regaining energy. They worked hard in round 1. Khamzat worked hard to control and try and dominate Burns in round 1. So yeah, he did slow down. He does noticeably slow down, but it's not any more than any other fighter would, based on my experience. So I know what you're thinking now. Well, what's this got to do with anything? Because DDP hasn't really got jiu-jitsu on the level of a Gilbert Burns. You know, Khamzat Chimaev probably isn't going to shy away from being in the guard of DDP. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. You know, it's important. If his game plan's the same every time, Khamzat Chimaev is going to try and pressure DDP to the fence and try and take him down. And if he does manage to take him down, that's the thing. There's no one that's managing to stop him really, except for maybe Gilbert Burns did, I think, later in the fight. I think it's in like round 3, manages to stuff a takedown. No one's really stuffing takedowns from Khamzat Chimaev. It doesn't really happen. Is DDP going to be able to do it? I don't know. Maybe he's going to be like one of the very few who can. If he can't, and he ends up on the ground, I don't think Khamzat's going to be scared to deal with DDP's jiu-jitsu. I think he's just going to keep working and pressuring and try and get to the back. Having the same game plan every time is a strength and a weakness, though, because DDP knows what he's going to do, and hopefully he game plans for that. Next up, the second and only other time in the UFC that Khamzat Chimaev has gone to a decision, and it's against Kamaru Usman. Now, this fight took place in 2023. It was on short notice. Kamaru Usman came to fill in on this fight 9 days' notice. He wasn't out of shape. He wasn't like off the couch. 9 days' notice. He was already training, I think, for a fight with Leon Edwards. I think it was, if I'm remembering right, at the time. He was, I think, maybe a rematch with Leon Edwards. I'm not sure. Maybe it was the first fight. I think it was a rematch with Leon Edwards. So yeah, an interesting one. Very interesting because obviously Kamaru Usman didn't have a lot of time to prepare for Khamzat, but it is worth mentioning, and I'll say this now as well, before we get into this properly. Usman had been helping, so a year prior to this, Usman was one of the guys helping Burns get ready to fight Khamzat Chimaev. So he's not going in completely blind by any stretch. He's going in on 9 days' notice, sure, maybe he didn't have enough time to kind of build a fully rounded game plan, but he knows he's trained Gilbert Burns to go against Khamzat Chimaev, and Khamzat Chimaev's game plan doesn't change. So theoretically, that's why Usman does so well in this fight on such short notice against a guy who's really, really tough. And let's not forget that Usman was a dominant champion in his division for a long time. let's take a look. The fight starts exactly the same as the Gilbert Burns fight. Khamzat attempts to pressure Usman to the fence. Khamzat tries to pressure Usman to the fence with some kicks. But it doesn't work. Usman doesn't give him the space. And you can see on the face of Khamzat right there, you can see on his face, he's kind of like, yo, this guy isn't moving backwards. And this is 10 seconds into the fight, you know? This is 10 seconds into the fight, and Khamzat's like, yo, the game plan immediately isn't working. But that's because Usman knows that if he moves backwards, Khamzat's going to shoot. Well, here's the thing. Khamzat shoots anyway. He shoots from really far out, and if it was anybody else, they probably wouldn't have gotten this takedown. But he manages to just catch the leg of Usman. Usman tries to sprawl, but Khamzat's in on that leg, and he goes for the single leg, and he gets in on it, and he's relentless with it. He's pulling the legs out from Usman over and over. But Usman's crafty, man. Usman's crafty. You see, because Khamzat's weighing on him and dragging away at his base. But every time he does so, Usman just uses the fence, not grabbing the fence, but uses the fence to as another anchor point to kind of build himself back up. And he makes every position. So Khamzat sweeps one leg and Usman drops to his knees. He pops back up onto the other leg, and Khamzat has to start all over again. And Usman makes it this struggle and kind of draws it out. Khamzat realizes Usman's using the fence to kind of try and wear on him and make him work harder. So he tries to pull Usman away from it, but Usman needs that fence. That fence is Usman's lifeline. So he crawls back to it as fast as he can, and he starts posting on it with his face. Like, Usman's using every part of his body. He's making contact with the fence to create another point where Khamzat can't drive. If Khamzat can't drive, then Khamzat can't really ball you over. He's a very strength-based grappler. He'll try and just overpower you, and he can't just push and drill right through the fence. So Usman's using that to his advantage. Usman tries to get up, but makes a mistake, and Khamzat ends up on his back, kind of in this strange little halfway between transitional position, and lands a few good ground strikes, good few ground and pound strikes. And he gets one hook in underneath, and that's enough control for Khamzat, and he starts landing some good ground and pound strikes, trying to get Usman to open up so he can land the choke. Every time Usman tries to start building base back up, Khamzat's attacking the arms, getting control of the wrists, and pulling those bases out from under him, pulling those anchors out from under him. But Usman powers through, and with Khamzat Chimaev glued to his back, he struggles to his feet, where they begin to hand fight. It's pretty frantic, it's pretty desperate, and Khamzat wins. Khamzat gets the choke in, and it looks like it's all over. Like, he's under the neck, he's cranking on the head, he's cranking on the neck. He's basically under there, and Usman's starting to panic. You can see the commentary team is writing his obituary. It looks like it's over. But Usman's got another Hail Mary. Usman's throwing out the Hail Mary, and he just throws himself to the floor with Khamzat on his back. Both of them landing on their heads, landing head first on the mat. But it makes the space for Kamaru. He gets out of the choke, although remaining on bottom position, and they kind of just ride it out from there, and he survives round one. Now, this is important. Kamaru Usman doesn't have the jiu-jitsu pedigree of a Gilbert Burns, so he can't just turn onto his back and then get his guard and use that to defend himself. Usman had to use the fence to kind of... It was an interesting strategy. He used the fence to make Khamzat work harder, and at the end of that round, it seemed like Khamzat was tireder than Usman, even though Usman was on bottom and getting worked the whole time, because Usman was playing smart. He was being a crafty vet. He was using, what you don't get to being a champion without picking up a few tricks, and using the cage to kind of counter the grappling of Khamzat was a brilliant idea. Again, once he survives the first round, there's not too much grappling. A couple of bits here and there, and Usman even starts threatening his own takedowns on Khamzat, and Khamzat's biting on every time Usman pretends to shoot a takedown. Khamzat bites on that fake, and he eats a shot for it, eats a punch for it. It's just interesting to see. So yeah, if you survive the first round, if you can survive the first round, and we have seen now two ways of surviving the first round with Khamzat, I think it is a lot about weathering the storm. I think you've got to employ some sort of rope-a-dope. So I think that's what Usman did here, using the fence and kind of just stalling out every position, every change in position, he would stall it out. Every bit of progress Khamzat would make, he would just pull it back immediately. Khamzat would have to start all over again, and it was a lot of that. He made Khamzat work really hard to get there. Now we've got to take a look at DDP. And we've got to take a look at DDP versus a grappler. Ideally, DDP versus a grappler. So, let's take a look, shall we? A good grappler that DDP's fought. Well. It appears there really aren't any. There aren't many, if any. But we do have Derek Brunson. Okay, so not as good as a Khamzat Chimaev, that's fair. Not as good as a Kamaru Usman or a Gilbert Burns, we'll say, in the grappling division, in the grappling department. But Gilbert Burns is a decent wrestler, American style wrestler, but he's a decent wrestler. So let's take a look. The fight starts out, there's a feeling out process with an exchange of kicks between the two. Goes back and forth until DDP starts feeling himself a little bit, throws a kick to the body, and it gets caught by Brunson, who turns it into a takedown immediately. Brunson slips straight in to side control, and from there starts trying to isolate an arm for a straight arm lock. He starts working hard, smothering DDP. But DDP manages to get that hook, if you can see it. You can see my mouse. Manages to get that hook in there, this little hook, and manages to use that to kind of build a bridge to make some more space. And by doing that, he does manage to arc up a little bit and make some space and kind of start getting free. He gets to his feet, but sacrifices his neck to do it, and Derek Brunson jumps the gilly. DDP's head pops right out the second they touch the ground, and now Drickus takes advantage of being on top position and lands some nasty little elbows. Derek manages to kick off DDP. He manages to get his butterfly, his guard in. He transitions to butterfly hooks. Manages to kick off DDP. DDP and leaps back in with a big punch, a big strike. Leaps back in and re-engages on the ground. Derek again gets his butterfly hooks in, gets his guard back, but DDP is on top and he's trying to get some work done. They transition into a 50-50. The both of them engage in a 50-50, taking hold of each other's legs, and they both roll. Derek rolls for a heel hook and DDP rolls for a footlock. DDP comes out on top. The footlock isn't as difficult to get a hold of. You'd have to go as deep to get a footlock as you do for a heel hook. But you don't typically see people tapping to footlocks. It just doesn't happen all that often. It's painful, and there is potential of snapping your foot or damaging your toes or spraining your ankle. There is always that potential, and it's not comfortable. But you don't really see people tap into a footlock very often, if ever. You don't really see it. So Brunson decides to just turn around while in that footlock position. He just gives up on his own heel hook, which he's not managed to get. He bears the pain for a bit, and he kind of just uses DDP being occupied with the footlock to turn around and ends up on his back. DDP builds a base and starts shucking to try and throw Brunson over the top and get him off, but Brunson's slick with it. He's a great grappler, maybe not the best in the UFC, but he's a pretty great grappler, and he rolls with it. He manages to get the cradle, so he rolls right through, bringing DDP over, and ends up landing with the cradle in side control with this cradle. DDP again turns and starts building to his feet, but gives his back to Derek Brunson. Derek climbs onto the back as DDP manages to finally get to his feet. But Derek hasn't got the pressure of a Khamzat Chimaev, and DDP does break free. but on the break eats a massive left hand for his trouble and has himself really hurt. And Brunson applies the pressure, rocks him again towards the end. DDP really not looking good in the last minute of the fight. Shoots his own panic takedown, but ends up on bottom with Derek Brunson on top. Again, gives his back, and Brunson goes for the rear naked choke. He gets it in there. It's not really good. It's not a good angle for it. It's not under the chin. It's kind of sloppily done, and Brunson just kind of gives up on it. A few seconds later, after realizing he's not getting under the chin and the angle isn't right, he kind of lets go of it. DDP builds back to his feet and actually finishes strong after being kind of tossed around and ragdolled in that round. So, I mean, there you have it. There's not much more I can say about it. I want Dricus du Plessis to be Khamzat Chimaev. I think it's better for the division. It's better movement. Khamzat doesn't fight that often. Like, there was a time where Khamzat was fighting like every other week. That doesn't happen too much anymore. I know he's had injuries and sickness and stuff like that. But yeah, imagine if Khamzat wins the belt. We'll never see him defend it. It'd be super rare. He may even just retire with it. I suppose what I'm trying to say is that if Derek Brunson can take you down and control you like that and get to your back and get to your neck in round one, if Derek Brunson can do that, Khamzat Chimaev's definitely going to be able to do it, and Khamzat Chimaev probably finishes you there. I don't know. I don't know what DDP has, like what's his ace in the hole, what's his special trick that's going to save him against Khamzat. He can always use the Usman trick and he can game plan around that. He can stay glued to the fence and he can use that to build up and make it harder for Khamzat to drive through. That's always a game plan he can adopt. He's not got the wrestling of Usman though, He's got great grappling. He's done jiu-jitsu, judo. My apologies. He's done a lot of judo. He's a judoka, but I don't know. Hopefully he can learn from Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman and kind of build a game plan to survive the first round, because that's kind of what happens. I think Khamzat's grappling is dominant, It'll be interesting to see what his plan is, what his game plan is to survive the onslaught, the early onslaught of Khamzat Chimaev. I think it'll be interesting to see, It'd be interesting to see. You feel like against Brunson, he would have prepared better for the grappling, because Brunson did really well and kind of was overpowering him early in that fight, and especially in round one, he nearly finished him in round one. I just feel like if Khamzat gets into that same position, he gets the win. I don't know. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Subscribe for more content like this. Leave me a like. Why not? Why not? Thank you very much for watching all the way until the end. Until next time, keep your chin down and keep swinging. Peace and love. I'll see you around.